Sarah's morning jog was supposed to be routine, just another peaceful run through Riverside Park before work. But when a massive Pitbull suddenly blocked her path, refusing to let her pass, everything changed. At first, she felt pure terror. The dog's eyes were intense, its stance unwavering. But then she noticed something strange in those eyes. Not aggression, desperation. What happened next would turn an ordinary Tuesday into the most heart-stopping rescue of her life and reveal a truth that no one could predict it. Before we dive into this incredible story, if you love tales of courage, loyalty, and unexpected heroes, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below telling us about a time an animal surprised you. Your support helps us share more amazing stories like this one. The morning sun filtered through the towering oaks of Riverside Park, casting dancing shadows across the worn jogging path. Sarah Mitchell checked her fitness watch as her sneakers hit the familiar trail with rhythmic precision. 6:15 a.m., right on schedule. She had been running the same route for 3 years, every Tuesday and Thursday morning, before heading to her job as a pediatric nurse at County General Hospital. The park was her sanctuary, a place where she could clear her mind before facing the chaos of 12-hour shifts. The air was crisp with the last breath of autumn, carrying the scent of damp leaves and morning dew. A few early risers passed her going the opposite direction, offering the customary jogger's nod. Everything was perfectly, beautifully ordinary. Sarah rounded the familiar bend near the old stone bridge, her breathing steady, her mind already planning her day. But then, without warning, a massive shape emerged from the bushes ahead. She stumbled, nearly losing her footing as her heart lurched into her throat. Standing directly in the middle of the path, blocking her way completely, was a Pitbull. The dog was enormous, easily 70 pounds of pure muscle. Its brindle coat was muddy and matted, and as Sarah froze mid-stride, the animal's eyes locked onto hers with an intensity that sent ice through her veins. Every news story, every warning about aggressive dogs flashed through her mind in an instant. Her hand instinctively reached for her phone and her armband. "Good dog," she whispered, her voice trembling despite her attempt at calm. "Good boy. I'm just going to back away slowly." But as she took a careful step backward, the Pitbull moved forward, not aggressively, not with teeth bared or hackles raised. Instead, the dog took a deliberate step toward her and sat down, blocking the path even more completely. Its eyes never left her face. Sarah's pulse hammered in her ears. This wasn't normal behavior for an aggressive dog. Something was off. She tried moving to the left, toward the grass. The Pitbull immediately shifted, placing itself back in her path. When she moved right, toward the tree line, the dog did the same thing. It was deliberately preventing her from passing, yet showing none of the typical signs of aggression. No growling, no snarling. The dog's mouth was closed, its posture alert but not threatening. Sarah's nursing training kicked in, the same assessment skills she used on nonverbal patients. She forced herself to really look at the animal. The dog was breathing heavily, its sides heaving with exertion. Its paws were torn and bleeding slightly. And those eyes, those deep brown eyes, weren't filled with menace. They were filled with something else entirely. Urgency, desperation, pleading. "What do you want?" she asked, more to herself than the dog. As if in response, the Pitbull stood, took 3 steps backward down the path, and then stopped, looking back at her. The gesture was unmistakable. It was exactly what her childhood golden retriever used to do when he wanted her to follow him. Her breath caught in her throat. The dog barked once, a sharp sound that echoed to the quiet morning. Then it took a few more steps away and looked back again. The message was crystal clear. "Follow me." Every instinct Sarah possessed screamed warnings. This could be dangerous. The dog could lead her into trouble. It could attack. It could be rabid. She should call animal control and get out of there. But something deeper than instinct pulled at her, that same intuition that had saved lives in her emergency room, that sixth sense that told her when a patient's condition was more serious than it appeared. This dog wasn't a threat. This dog needed help. Or rather, this dog was trying to help. Sarah made a decision that would change everything. "Okay," she said softly, taking a tentative step forward. "Show me what you need to show me." The pit bull's entire demeanor shifted. Its tail, which had been hanging low, lifted slightly. It took several quick steps forward, looked back to ensure she was following, and then trotted ahead with clear purpose. Sarah followed, her phone now in her hand, thumb hovering over the emergency call button, just in case. They left the main jogging path, the dog leading her onto a smaller, less maintained trail that wound deeper into the wooded section of the park. Sarah's heart pounded as branches began to close in around them, the morning light dimming under the thick canopy. The familiar safety of the open trail disappeared behind her. She was now in a part of Riverside Park she'd never explored, following a strange dog into the wilderness. "This better not be a mistake," she muttered, but she kept walking. The dog moved with increasing urgency now, occasionally breaking into a run before stopping to make sure Sarah was still behind. Its desperation was palpable, and that desperation kept Sarah moving forward despite her growing anxiety. The terrain grew rougher. Sarah had to duck under low-hanging branches and step over fallen logs. Her carefully planned morning run had turned into something completely unexpected. The sounds of the city faded away, replaced by the rustle of leaves and the distant call of crows. She was going deeper into the park than she'd ever imagined, led by a dog that refused to give up on whatever mission it was determined to complete. Then, suddenly, the pit bull stopped. They had reached a small clearing where the morning sun broke through in scattered beams. The dog turned to face her, barked once more, and then looked pointedly to the left, toward a dense thicket of bushes and fallen timber. Sarah followed the dog's gaze, squinting into the shadows, trying to understand what she was supposed to see. At first, there was nothing, just brush and branches and the play of light and shadow. But then she heard it, a sound so faint she almost missed it beneath the whisper of wind through leaves. A whimper, weak, desperate, barely human. And in that instant, Sarah understood. The dog hadn't been blocking her path out of aggression, or even randomness. It had been trying to find help. And somehow, in the midst of all the morning joggers, it had chosen her. Sarah's hands shook as she raised her phone, but not to call animal control. The pit bull watched her intently as she moved closer to the thicket, and what she saw there made her blood run cold. This was bigger than she could have imagined. This was an emergency. Without hesitation, she dialed 911. If this story is keeping you on the edge of your seat, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss what happens next. Drop a comment and let us know. Would you follow a strange dog into the woods? Your engagement helps this channel grow. 911, what's your emergency? The dispatcher's calm voice crackled through Sarah's phone, a stark contrast to the chaos of emotions flooding through her. "I'm in Riverside Park, in the woods past the stone bridge," Sarah said, her voice tight with controlled urgency. "I need police and paramedics immediately. I found someone. They're injured. It looks bad." Her nursing instincts had already cataloged what she was seeing even as horror threatened to overwhelm her training. Partially hidden beneath a collapsed section of dead timber and brush was a teenage boy, maybe 16 or 17 years old. He was unconscious, his face pale beneath dirt and dried blood. His left leg was trapped at an unnatural angle beneath a large branch, and even from several feet away, Sarah could see the concerning swelling. Worse, his lips had a bluish tint that sent alarm bells ringing through every cell of her medical training. "Stay on the line," the dispatcher instructed. "Can you safely approach the person? Are you in any danger?" Sarah glanced at the pit bull, who had moved to sit near the boy's head, its eyes never leaving the teenager's face. The dog's posture was protective, gentle. "No, I'm safe," Sarah confirmed. "There's a dog here. I think it belongs to the victim. The dog led me here. I'm a nurse. I'm going to assess him now." She dropped to her knees beside the boy, her phone on speaker, as she carefully reached out to check for a pulse. The pit bull watched but didn't interfere, just shifted slightly to give her better access. Sarah's fingers found a carotid artery, and relief flooded through her. Weak but present. He was alive. "I have a pulse, but it's thready," Sarah reported to the dispatcher. "Male, approximately 16 years old, unconscious, unresponsive. He has what appears to be a compound fracture of the left femur, significant swelling, possible internal bleeding. He's showing signs of shock and hypothermia. His breathing is shallow. "Dispatcher, how far out of the paramedics?" 8 minutes, came the response. "Stay with him. Keep talking to me." 8 minutes. It could be a lifetime. Sarah pulled off her lightweight running jacket and carefully laid it over the boy's torso, trying to preserve what body heat he had left. The morning was cool, and she had no idea how long he'd been lying here. Hours? All night? The thought made her stomach turn. She looked more carefully at the scene, her mind working to piece together what had happened. About 15 feet away, she could see disturbed earth and broken branches leading up a steep embankment, skid marks in the dirt. She followed the trajectory with her eyes and spotted it, a mountain bike, twisted and broken, hanging from a tree branch halfway up the slope. He'd been biking on one of the dangerous hill trails, probably tried to jump or lost control and crashed hard. The heavy timber had probably fallen during his crash or shortly after, trapping him here. Alone, except he hadn't been alone. Sarah turned to look at the Pitbull, who was now gently licking the boy's hand. The dog had probably stayed all night keeping watch, and then at first light had done the only thing it could do, gone for help. "You're a good boy," Sarah whispered to the dog, her throat tight. "Such a good, brave boy." The Pitbull's eyes met hers, and she could have sworn she saw relief in them. Someone finally understood. Someone finally came. Sarah turned her attention back to her patient. "Can you hear me?" she called loudly, checking his pupil response with her phone flashlight. Sluggish but reactive. That was something. She ran her hands carefully along his arms, checking for additional breaks. His right wrist was badly sprained, possibly fractured. There were abrasions everywhere, and a concerning gash on his forehead that had bled significantly but was now clotted. The real danger was the leg and possible internal injuries. She couldn't move the timber without risking further damage, and she didn't dare try to free him without proper equipment. But she could monitor him, keep him stable, and pray those 8 minutes passed quickly. She checked her watch. 6:27 a.m. Had it only been 12 minutes since the dog first blocked her path? It felt like hours. "Dispatcher, I need you to know the timber trapping his leg is significant. The rescue team is going to need cutting equipment, maybe a saw, and tell them to bring a backboard and C-collar. Possible spinal involvement, given the mechanism of injury." Sarah's voice was steady now, locked into professional calm that had carried her through countless emergencies. "Copy that. They're aware. Can you tell me the patient's name? Is there any identification?" Sarah carefully checked the boy's pockets. Finding a wallet, she flipped it open. Trevor Morrison. Address says Oakmont Drive. He's 17 according to his school ID. Oakmont High School. She pulled out her phone and snapped a photo of the ID, then texted it to the dispatcher's number they provided. If Trevor's parents were looking for him, they needed to know now. The Pitbull whined softly and pawed at Trevor's shoulder. Sarah watched as the dog then looked up at her, back to Trevor, then back to her. The message was clear. "Help him. Please help him." "We are helping," Sarah said softly to the dog. "Your boy is going to be okay. You did good. You found help." In the distance, finally, she heard sirens. The sound brought tears of relief to her eyes. She hadn't realized how scared she'd been, how heavy the responsibility felt, alone in the woods with a critically injured teenager and a dog who trusted her to save his best friend. The sirens grew louder, and she could hear voices calling out. "Here," Sarah shouted. "We're here. Follow the side trail past the stone bridge." She kept yelling, guiding them in, until she heard the crash of boots through underbrush. Moments later, 2 paramedics burst into clearing, followed closely by 2 police officers. Nurse Sarah Mitchell, she identified herself immediately. 17-year-old male bike crash, estimated occurrence 10 to 12 hours ago. Compound femur fracture, possible internal bleeding, signs of shock and hypothermia. Unconscious, but pupils reactive. I've been monitoring his airway. Pulses weak but steady. The paramedics moved with practiced efficiency, one dropping beside Trevor, while the other began unpacking equipment. The police officers secured the scene, one of them immediately getting on his radio to call for additional support. Sarah stepped back to give them room, but stayed close enough to provide information as needed. One officer approached her. "Ma'am, can you tell me how you found him?" Sarah turned and pointed to the Pitbull, who had been pushed aside by the flurry of activity, but was watching everything with intense focus. "The dog," she said simply. "The dog found me on my morning run, blocked my path, and led me here. He wouldn't let me pass until I followed him." The officer's eyebrows rose. "The dog led you here?" "Yes. I know how it sounds, but I'm telling you, that dog went looking for help and chose me. He's been protecting Trevor all night." Sarah's voice carried absolute certainty. That dog saved this kid's life. The officer looked at the pit bull with new respect. "We're going to need to call animal control to secure the dog until we can find the owner." "Trevor is the owner," Sarah said quickly. "His wallet has a school ID, and that dog isn't going anywhere until he knows Trevor is safe. Trust me on this." As if to prove her point, the pit bull had inched closer to where the paramedics worked, lying down but keeping his eyes locked on his boy. "We're going to need the saw," one paramedic called out. "This timber is too heavy to lift safely." Within minutes, firefighters arrived with cutting equipment. Sarah watched as they carefully, methodically cut away the branch trapping Trevor's leg. The moment he was freed, the paramedics moved him onto a backboard with practiced precision. "He's stabilizing," the lead paramedic announced. "Let's get him transported. County General Trauma Unit. They're expecting us." Sarah felt a wave of relief. That was her hospital. She could follow up, make sure Trevor got the care he needed. As they loaded Trevor onto a stretcher and began the careful trek back to the main path, the pit bull tried to follow. An officer moved to restrain him, but Sarah intervened. "Please," she said, "let him follow to the ambulance. Let him see Trevor is going to help. This dog has earned that much." The officer hesitated, then nodded. Together, the unusual procession made its way out of the woods. A injured teenager, a team of first responders, a morning jogger turned rescuer, and a loyal pit bull who refused to give up. As they emerged into the brightening morning light of the main park, Sarah realized she was shaking, not from fear, but from the adrenaline of what had just happened. They reached the ambulance, and the paramedics loaded Trevor inside. The pit bull tried to jump in after him, but was gently held back. The dog let out a heartbroken howl that cut through Sarah's heart like a knife. She knelt beside him, wrapping her arms around his muddy, trembling body. "He's going to be okay," she whispered into the dog's fur. "Your boy is going to be okay because of you. You're a hero." The pit bull leaned into her embrace, and Sarah felt the animal's whole body shudder, with exhaustion and relief. He had held it together, done what he needed to do, and now he could finally let go. This story gets even more incredible. If you're loving this journey, hit that like button and subscribe to see how this amazing rescue unfolds. Comment below with a heart emoji if you believe dogs are true heroes. The emergency room at County General was controlled chaos when Sarah arrived 45 minutes after the ambulance had taken Trevor. She'd spent the time giving her statement to police, providing her contact information, and crucially, convincing animal control not to take the pit bull to the shelter. The dog was evidence in an open case, yes, but more importantly, he was Trevor's family. Taking him away when the boy woke up would be cruel. Instead, after some heated negotiation and calling in favors with colleagues, Sarah had gotten permission to take the dog to a 24-hour emergency vet clinic for evaluation. The pit bull had been remarkably compliant, seeming to understand that Sarah was someone he could trust. The vet had found him dehydrated, exhausted, and suffering from torn paw pads from his desperate run to the park, but otherwise healthy. They'd given him fluids, bandaged his paws, and Sarah had done something she never imagined doing. She'd handed over her credit card for his care and arranged to foster him until Trevor recovered. Now, still in her running clothes but wearing a borrowed hospital ID badge, Sarah walked through familiar hallways to the trauma unit. She found Trevor's doctor, Dr. Marcus Chun, someone she'd worked with on countless cases. "Marcus," she called out, "the mountain bike kid, how is he?" Dr. Chin turned, surprise crossing his face. "Sarah, I heard you were the one who found him. Hell of a way to spend a morning run." His expression grew serious. "He's stable. We've got him in surgery, now repairing the femur. It was bad, but he's young and strong. Barring complications, he should make a full recovery. You found him just in time. Another few hours, and we'd be having a very different conversation. Sarah felt her knees weaken with relief. She leaned against the wall, nodding. His parents, in the surgical waiting room. They've been here since we called them. Apparently, Trevor didn't come home last night after a bike ride, but they thought he'd stayed at a friend's house. They didn't realize anything was wrong until we called. Dr. Chen studied her face. You okay? You look like you're about to fall over. I'm fine. Just processing. Sarah straightened. I need to talk to his parents. Is that okay? Room 3B, down the hall. Sarah, Dr. Chen touched her shoulder. You did good today. Real good. Sarah found the waiting room and immediately identified Trevor's parents. The woman was crying softly, clutching a man's hand so tightly her knuckles were white. They looked up as Sarah entered, hope and fear warring on their faces. Are you the doctor? The woman asked. No, I'm Sarah Mitchell. I'm a nurse here, but I'm also the person who found Trevor this morning. Sarah sat down across from them. I want to make sure you knew what happened, and to tell you about someone very important. For the next 15 minutes, Sarah told them everything. How their son's dog had found her, how the Pitbull had refused to let her pass, how he'd led her through the woods to where Trevor lay trapped. She told him about the dog's loyalty, how he'd clearly stayed with Trevor all night, and how he'd gone for help at first light. By the time she finished, Mrs. Morrison was sobbing openly, and Mr. Morrison was wiping his eyes with the back of his hand. Zeus, Mrs. Morrison whispered. His name is Zeus. Trevor adopted him from a shelter 6 months ago. We were worried about the breed, but Trevor promised to train him to love him, and he did. Oh, God, Zeus saved our son's life. He did, Sarah confirmed. But there's something you need to know. Zeus is an emergency vet right now getting treated. He ran his paws bloody trying to find help. I've arranged to foster him temporarily because animal control wanted to take him to the shelter, and I couldn't let that happen. But he needs to see Trevor. He needs to know his boy is okay. Mr. Morrison stood abruptly. We need to get him now. Where is he? Sarah provided the address of the vet clinic. I've already paid for his treatment. Consider it a gift. But he's going to need a few days to heal before he can walk properly. When you bring him home, he's going to need rest and care. Whatever he needs, Mrs. Morrison said fiercely. That dog is part of our family now and forever. He saved our baby boy. Dr. Chen appeared at the doorway. Mr. and Mrs. Morrison? Trevor is out of surgery. He did great. He's going to recovery now, and you can see him in about 20 minutes once he's settled. The relief in the room was palpable. Sarah stood to leave, but Mrs. Morrison grabbed her hand. Thank you. Thank you for following Zeus. Thank you for trusting a dog that most people would have been afraid of. Thank you for saving our son. Zeus did the saving, Sarah said softly. I just listened. The next few days passed in a blur. Sarah's morning run story spread to the hospital like wildfire. Local news picked it up, and suddenly she was being asked for interviews about the Pitbull who saved his owner. Sarah deflected the attention to Zeus, insisting the dog was the real hero. But she visited Trevor every day during her shifts, watching his progress. When Trevor woke up fully 2 days after surgery, still groggy from pain medication, his first word was Zeus. Sarah had been there, having time to break perfectly. Zeus is okay, she told him immediately. Your dog is a hero, Trevor. He found me and led me to you. He saved your life. Tears streamed down Trevor's face. He stayed with me. I remember, before I passed out completely, he was there. He kept me warm. I heard him barking, but then everything went dark. He stayed. All night, Sarah confirmed. And then he went for help. Your parents are bringing him to visit as soon as the doctors clear it. He's been at home recovering too. He ran his paws raw looking for help. Trevor's hand gripped the bed rail. Can I see him? Please. Sarah had already arranged it, with Dr. Chen's approval. They were bending the rules about animal visits. Zeus needed this reunion, as much as Trevor did. 20 minutes later, Mr. Morrison carried Zeus into the hospital room. The dog had been calm in the car, but the moment he saw Trevor, he began whining frantically. "It's okay," the nurse on duty said. "Let him go." Mr. Morrison set Zeus gently on the floor. Despite his bandaged paws, the dog limped as fast as he could to Trevor's bedside. The reunion was something Sarah would never forget. Zeus carefully placed his paws on the edge of the bed, stretching up to lick Trevor's face. The teenager wrapped his arms around the dog's neck, and both of them shook with emotion. "Good boy," Trevor sobbed. "Such a good boy, Zeus. You saved me. You saved me, buddy." Zeus whined and licked every inch of Trevor's face he could reach, his whole body wiggling with joy. After all the fear, all the waiting, his boy was awake. His boy was okay. Sarah stepped back, letting the family have their moment, but Mrs. Morrison reached out and pulled her into a hug. "You're part of this, too," she whispered. "You're part of this miracle." The story made national news. The local TV station did a feature on Zeus, the Pitbull hero who defied stereotypes to save his owner. Animal advocacy groups celebrated the story as proof that pit bulls are loving, loyal dogs when raised with care. The park added better signage on the dangerous trails and installed emergency call boxes. And Sarah found herself invited to speak at schools about trusting your instincts and looking beyond stereotypes. But for Sarah, the real impact was more personal. She lived a careful life, following routines, avoiding risks. That morning, she'd chosen to trust, to follow, to take a chance on a dog that others might have feared. And that choice had saved a life. 3 weeks after the rescue, Trevor was released from the hospital. Sarah was there, along with half the hospital staff, to see him off. He was on crutches, would be for weeks, but he was alive and healing. Zeus rode home in the back seat beside him, never more than inches away from his boy. Before they left, Trevor handed Sarah an envelope. Inside was a card with a photo of him and Zeus, both smiling at the camera. The message inside was simple. "You taught me that heroes come in all forms. Thank you for seeing the hero in Zeus. Thank you for being one yourself. Forever grateful, Trevor and Zeus." We're almost at the end of this incredible journey. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe and share with someone who needs to hear about real-life heroes. What's the most amazing thing an animal has ever done for you? Tell us in the comments. 6 months had passed since that morning in Riverside Park, and autumn had given way to winter, then spring, and now the first warm days of early summer. Sarah's life had changed in ways both subtle and profound. The routine that had once defined her existence had been broken open, replaced by something richer, more textured, more alive. She still ran through Riverside Park, but now she varied her routes, explored trails she'd never considered before. And she was never alone. At her side, every morning, ran a brindle Pitbull rescue named Ruby. Sarah had adopted her 3 months earlier from the same shelter where Trevor had found Zeus. When she walked through and seen Ruby cowering in the back of her kennel, labeled aggressive and scheduled for euthanasia, Sarah had seen past the label to the terrified dog beneath. Sometimes she'd learned you just had to trust your instincts and give second chances. Ruby had bloomed under Sarah's care, transforming from a scared, reactive dog into a loving companion who slept on Sarah's bed and accompanied her everywhere the hospital would allow. More than that, Ruby had opened doors Sarah hadn't known were closed. Through Ruby, Sarah had joined a Pitbull advocacy group, had made new friends, had found community of people who believed, as she now did, that every dog deserved to be judged as an individual. This particular Saturday morning, Sarah wasn't running. Instead, she was helping set up for an event in the park's main pavilion. Banners reading "Pause for Heroes," celebrating loyal companions, hung from the rafters. Tables were laden with information about responsible pet ownership, adoption resources, and training programs. The local news had sent a crew, and in the center of it all, sitting proudly on a small stage, was Zeus. Trevor stood beside him, no longer on crutches, but still with a slight limp that doctors said would fade with time. The teenager had become something of a local celebrity, using his platform to advocate for pit bulls and animal rescue. He and Sarah had formed an unexpected friendship, bonded by the experience that had changed both their lives. Today's event was Trevor's idea, supported by donations from the community and organized by Sarah and the Morrisons. I can't believe how many people showed up, Trevor said as Sarah joined him on the stage. Below, the pavilion was filled with families, dogs of every size and breed, and news cameras. Mom said we got over 200 people registered. Sarah smiled, watching Ruby play with Zeus on their long leashes. The two dogs having become fast friends. People love a good story, and they love heroes. Zeus is both. She looked at Trevor seriously. But so are you. What you're doing, speaking out, changing minds about these dogs, that takes courage. Trevor shrugged, embarrassed. Zeus did all the hard work. I just got lucky that he loved me enough to save me. Luck had nothing to do with it, Sarah countered. You chose him from that shelter when everyone else passed him by because of his breed. You trained him with love and patience. You built that bond. Zeus saved you because you saved him first. The event began with speeches from local council members, veterinarians, and animal rescue organizations. Then it was Trevor's turn. He stepped up to the microphone, Zeus sitting calmly at his side, and the crowd quieted. Sarah had heard him practice the speech a dozen times, but it still gave her goosebumps. 6 months ago, I almost died in these woods, Trevor began, his voice steady despite his youth. I was stupid, riding trails I wasn't skilled enough for, not telling anyone where I was going, not carrying a phone. When I crashed and that timber fell on me, I thought that was it. I was alone in the dark, in pain, knowing no one knew where to find me. He paused, his hand dropping to Zeus's head. The dog looked up at him with absolute devotion. But I wasn't alone. Zeus was with me. He stayed through the whole night, keeping me warm, keeping me company. And when morning came and I couldn't call for help myself, Zeus did. He left me, which must have gone against every instinct to protect. And he went searching. He found someone he trusted, and he made her understand. Trevor's eyes found Sarah in the crowd. Sarah Mitchell could have ignored Zeus. She could have called animal control and gone on with her run. Most people, if they're honest, would have been scared of a strange pit bull blocking their path. But she looked past the stereotype. She listened. She trusted. And because she did, I'm standing here today. The crowd applauded. But Trevor held up his hand. I'm not telling you this story so you'll think I'm special or that Zeus is special. I'm telling you this so you'll understand something important. Zeus is a pit bull, a breed that gets discriminated against, banned from apartment complexes, viewed as inherently dangerous. But Zeus is also the most loyal, loving, intelligent dog I've ever known. He's not dangerous. He's a hero. Trevor's voice grew passionate. Every day, dogs like Zeus are euthanized in shelters because of their breed. Not because of their behavior, not because they're aggressive, but because of how they look. We're killing heroes because we're too afraid to see them. That has to change. The applause was louder this time, sustained. Sarah felt tears on her cheeks. Trevor continued. So today we're launching the Zeus Foundation. Money raised will go to rescuing pit bulls from high-kill shelters, funding training programs, and educating the public. We're going to save dogs like Zeus, so they can save people like me. The crowd erupted. Sarah watched donations pile up on the tables, watched families approach the rescue organizations with interest, watched minds changing in real time. Zeus sat calmly through it all, occasionally accepting pets from admirers, his tail wagging gently. He had no idea he was a celebrity. He was just a good boy who'd done what came naturally, protected as human. After the speeches, Sarah found herself surrounded by people wanting to hear her perspective, asking about Ruby, sharing their own stories of pit bull love and loyalty. One woman grabbed her hand, tears in her eyes. "Thank you for trusting that dog," she said. "My daughter wants to adopt a pit bull, and I've been saying no, because I'm scared. But after hearing this, seeing Zeus, I think I've been wrong. Sometimes we have to trust past our fear. That's all any of us can do," Sarah agreed. Trust, give chances, look deeper than the surface. As the afternoon wore on and the event began to wind down, Trevor found Sarah at one of the adoption tables where she was filling out paperwork for a family interested in one of the rescue pit bulls. "Hey," he said quietly, "can we talk? Just for a minute?" They walked away from the crowd, Zeus and Ruby trailing behind them on their leashes. Trevor seemed nervous, which was unusual for him. "I wanted to tell you something," he began. "Before the accident, I was kind of lost. My grades were terrible. I was hanging out with people who weren't great influences, driving my parents crazy. Getting Zeus was actually a last-ditch effort by my dad to give me responsibility, to give me something to care about." He looked down at Zeus, who sat attentively at his feet. "Zeus changed my life before he ever saved it. Training him, caring for him, it gave me purpose. And then, after the accident, after seeing what he did for me, how you helped all of it, I realized I wanted to do something that mattered. I wanted to help." Trevor pulled an envelope from his pocket and handed it to Sarah. "I got early acceptance to State University's veterinary program. I'm going to become a vet. I want to spend my life helping animals like Zeus. And it's because of you, because you showed me that one person acting with courage and compassion can change everything." Sarah opened the envelope and read the acceptance letter, her vision blurring with tears. "Trevor, this is amazing. You're going to be an incredible vet. I wouldn't be anything if Zeus hadn't found you," Trevor said simply. "If you hadn't trusted him, you changed the trajectory of my entire life in a single morning. I wanted you to know that. I wanted you to know that the ripples of what you did are going to keep spreading." Sarah pulled the teenager into a hug. "You're going to save so many animals, Trevor. You're going to make such a difference." "We both are," he replied. "The Zeus Foundation isn't just mine. It's ours. Yours and mine, and everyone who believes these dogs deserve a chance." As the sun began to set over Riverside Park, casting golden light across the pavilion, Sarah stood back and watched the scene before her. Families were adopting dogs. Volunteers were exchanging contact information. And in the center of it all, Trevor was being interviewed by a news crew with Zeus sitting proudly beside him. Ruby pressed against Sarah's leg, and she reached down to scratch behind her dog's ears. "We did good today, girl," Sarah whispered. Ruby's tail thumped against her leg in agreement. Mrs. Morrison approached, her face glowing with pride and gratitude. "Sarah, I can never thank you enough. Not just for saving Trevor's life, but for everything that came after. You gave us our son back, and then you helped him find his purpose. You're family now. You know that, right?" Sarah hugged the woman who had become like a second mother to her. "The feeling is mutual. Trevor and Zeus taught me something I've forgotten. That life isn't meant to be lived on autopilot, following the same safe path every day. Sometimes you have to take risks, trust your instincts, and follow where they lead, even if it's scary." Mr. Morrison joined them, shaking his head in wonder. "6 months ago, we were worried about Trevor adopting a Pitbull. We thought it was a mistake. Now that dog is a certified hero, and our son is planning to dedicate his life to helping animals. Funny how life works." "Not funny," Sarah corrected gently. "Miraculous. That's what this is. A miracle that started with a dog who refused to give up and a choice to trust instead of fear." As the event concluded and people began to leave, Trevor brought Zeus over one last time. The dog immediately greeted Ruby, the two touching noses in their ritual greeting. "We're doing a follow-up event in 3 months," Trevor said. "A 5K run to raise money for the foundation. Will you help organize it?" "Absolutely," Sarah agreed. "Ruby and I will be there." She paused and added, "You know, I've been thinking about going back to school, maybe getting my nurse practitioner license. This whole experience reminded me that I'd stop growing, stop challenging myself. If Zeus could be brave enough to run into the unknown looking for help, I could be brave enough to push myself further." Trevor grinned. "See? Ripples. They just keep spreading." That night, Sarah sat on her couch with Ruby curled beside her, scrolling through photos from the event on her phone. There was one of Trevor and Zeus on stage, the boy's hand resting on the dog's head. There was one of families meeting rescue dogs for the first time. And there was one someone had taken without her knowing. Sarah kneeling beside Ruby, both of them watching the crowd, protector and protected, rescuer and rescued. She thought back to that morning 6 months ago, to the moment Zeus had blocked her path. In that instant, her carefully controlled life had split open. She'd been forced to choose between fear and trust, between the comfortable routine and the unknown. She'd chosen trust, and it had changed everything. Her phone buzzed with a text from Trevor. Final count: 12 dogs adopted today, $47,000 raised for foundation, and hundreds of people educated. Zeus is passed out on my bed, completely exhausted from all the attention. Thank you for everything. This is just the beginning. Sarah typed back, the beginning of something beautiful. Zeus started a revolution with one brave run through the park. Let's see where it takes us. She set down her phone and looked at Ruby, who was watching her with those soulful brown eyes. You know what, girl? Tomorrow we're trying a new running trail. No more playing it safe. Zeus taught us that the best things happen when you're brave enough to venture off the familiar path. Ruby's tail wagged and Sarah laughed. She thought about all the mornings she'd run the same route, living the same day over and over, convincing herself that safety and routine were enough. She thought about how close she'd come to ignoring Zeus, to calling animal control, to choosing fear over faith. But she hadn't. She'd listened. She'd trusted. She'd followed a desperate dog into the woods, and in doing so, had saved a life, changed a community, and found her own purpose renewed. The Pitbull who blocked her path hadn't been an obstacle at all. He'd been an invitation to something greater. As Sarah drifted off to sleep that night, Ruby warm against her side, she smiled. Tomorrow would bring new trails, new challenges, new opportunities to choose courage over fear. And she was ready, because she'd learned the most important lesson of all. Sometimes the things that scare us, the moments that disrupt our comfortable routines, the unexpected obstacles in our path, those are exactly what we need to become who we're meant to be. Zeus had come looking for a hero that morning in Riverside Park. But in truth, he'd created one. And in saving Trevor, he'd saved Sarah too, reminding her that life's greatest adventures begin the moment we decide to trust, to take risks, and to see the hero in those others might fear. The story of Zeus and Trevor spread far beyond their small town, inspiring communities across the country to rethink breed stereotypes and give second chances. But for Sarah, the impact was simpler and more profound. Every morning when she laced up her running shoes and Ruby danced excitedly by the door, she remembered. She remembered that courage comes in all forms, that loyalty knows no breed, and that sometimes the best thing that can happen is having your path blocked by something unexpected, because that's when the real journey begins. If this story inspired you, please subscribe to our channel and share it with everyone you know. Let's spread the message that every dog deserves a chance, and every act of courage creates ripples that change the world. Drop a comment telling us, what will you do differently after hearing Zeus's story? Your engagement helps us continue sharing stories that matter. Thank you for being part of this community. And remember, sometimes the obstacles in our path are actually invitations to become heroes.